We are live. The Coffee and Biscotti Show, April 2nd, 2021. And boy, I feel great. I feel like I'm on fire. In fact, because of that, I decided to wear my really old Crew Mel shirt from years ago when I had my school. And it's because of our guest today. It's because of how I'm feeling, the energy that I'm feeling today. And there's just so many wonderful things happening. Here in Ontario, they decided to lock us down for another 30 days. It doesn't matter because I am going to rise above all of this. Today, my friends, I have a special guest. And when I say a special guest, what I mean is he's special to me. He's not just a special guest on the Coffee and Biscotti Show, but he's special to me. And here's why. I moved to Ottawa 2.5 years ago. And I always said that I would never move to someplace that was colder than Toronto. And yet, here I am in the nation's capital. When I got here, I had the pleasure of meeting one of our former guests, a mentor to me, Tuan Nguyen, who was on the show a few weeks back. And he quickly introduced me to a number of people. But in this case, I put a post on Facebook about training CEOs of companies and business executives who wanted to learn a little bit of Muay Thai. And the gentleman that's coming on today was one of the few who reached out and said, I've always wanted to do this. Now, almost 2 years later, this man opened up his heart and opened up his home to make me feel comfortable in a city that I was new to. He is an entrepreneur. He is the kind of entrepreneur, may I add, that has created multiple 7-figure businesses. He's a business coach. He's a husband. He's a father. And he is a man that has touched my heart. He is a guy that I feel really close to. When I'm having a shitty day, I pick up the good old horn and go, hello. Hey, Nick, you got a minute for me, brother? Because I really need you, man. My friends, it is without further ado that I bring to you the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Nick Hamm. And the crowd goes wild.
What an introduction.
Wow. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Krumel.
How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm fabulous. I'm excited. I'll tell you this. What the Twitchiverse, what our friends in the Twitchiverse don't know just yet is how powerful the next 90 minutes are going to be. Because you, my friend, are a remarkable man, and I have learned so much from you over the course of the last almost 2 years. And everybody should have a Nick Hamm as a friend. Let's just say it like that. Everybody should go out and find a Nick Hamm as a friend. So, that being said, first off, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Nick, I say this every week, but I started this show because I wanted a platform to bring people on who were ultra passionate people who were solving human problems, people who were using and leveraging their superpowers to go and help the world, help individuals step into their own power so that they can become pillars of support for their families and their communities. And you, my friend, are exactly that guy. So I want to welcome you to the Coffee and Biscotti Show. And the first thing, Nick, that I would like to do is I always like to sort of start with a bit of a background. So maybe what you can do for us, Nick, is tell us a little bit about Nick Hamm.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Krumel. I know you've been, I've been I guess, an audience member of the show, and I'm happy to be a part and contribute today. Your energy is amazing today. So I'm not going to have the same, I guess, explosive energy as you have. But really happy to be here, and thanks for having me on. So I guess a bit of a background. Trying to think how much detail we should go into, or great or little detail. But I think I would, if I had to kind of put a middle point of my life, I would say there's like before a father, and then there's like after father. So there's like the Nick Hamm BF, and there's the Nick Hamm AF. So I think like the BF stuff. So I studied, my father was in the military. I moved all around my entire life. And so kind of was in a whole bunch of different schools throughout my entire life, which gave me an opportunity to get to meet and form friends in all different neighborhoods, get comfortable with learning new people. I ended up studying electrical engineering at the University of Ottawa. Not really because I wanted to be an engineer, mostly because my father was an engineer in the military, and I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do. So that's why I ended up going to University of Ottawa to study electrical engineering. And then I ended up running my first business during one of the summer months. I set up and ran like a student painting company. And as soon as I got experience, what it was like to be an entrepreneur, I'm like, man, I am not being an engineer. This is like definitely what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And so when I finished school, I ended up moving to Toronto, lived there for most of my 20s. I worked for a consulting company, started a few different businesses, and then came back to basically partnering with a friend I had made earlier in Scholars at Your Service, which is a student-based painting franchise. So the whole premise is about taking university students and teaching them what it's like to run their own small service-based business during the summer. Very similar to what I had experienced, mostly because I think at that time in my life, I realized that my father and family had wanted me to do something. And after I'd experienced some things on my own, I'm like, you know what? I want to help create this environment for other youth, other university students, where they can learn what's important to them. They can get some business experience. They can learn what it's like to run a business by actually running a business, not by learning about it in school. And so we started that business in Ottawa, and then slowly expanded it out to a national company. So all the way across into Vancouver. After I'd say maybe 6 or 7 years of doing that, I decided that the real value in what we were doing was actually the people. It was the entrepreneurs, and we didn't really have like a place for them to stay working with us. And so we created an incubator program where if they had their own business idea that they wanted to start, and they were a successful entrepreneur, we basically invest in helping them get set up and start their other business. And so kind of went a little bit more into the, I'd say like mentoring, advisory, investment type of realm. Did that for a number of years. And then the kind of getting towards the end of the before fatherhood, my wife and I, we found out that I was, we were pregnant, we were going to have a child. And I'd met Twan Nugent not long before this at an event. And I mean, Twan was on here. I'm sure everyone, knows who Twan is and what incredible person he is, the energy that he has. And I saw him at another event after I found out that I was going to be a father. And I told him, he's like, don't worry, I got you. Like, you're going to be such an awesome dad. We're going to take care of you. And I had this kind of limiting belief at the time where it was, I want to be successful as an entrepreneur, but I was working, 80, 90-hour weeks. That's all I was doing all the time. But I also now wanted to be a successful father. And it's kind of like this choice of like, well, what do I choose? And I didn't really want to choose one or the other. I'm like, if I just am a present father, I'm going to lose this identity. Like my whole life has been about building businesses. I love what I do. And if I give that up, I'm not going to be satisfied. And obviously, not being there for my family or there for my kids was just not an option to consider either. And so it set me on this new trajectory of I'll be able to do both, but I just need to become better at each of these things. And so I need to become a better entrepreneur. I need to learn how to become a better father so I can be more effective in everything I'm doing and succeed in both. And Twan kind of took me under his wing. introduced me to this daddy group that I've been a part of called the Dad Edge Alliance. So there's like about 350 guys online. We meet in a group once a week. We just talk about what does it mean to be a husband, a father, a man that we want to show up for our families with, not kind of what everyone would normally expect of us. And so I went down that path. I also went down a path of reading a ton of books, finding my own business mentors, and trying to just improve my ability to get results in business, but in less time. And so that led me eventually down a path where a couple of guys that used to be franchise managers for us had gone off and started their own businesses that they've been very successful. And they came back to me, started asking, hey, any chance we can get you to come in and do some, coaching or consulting with us or with our team? So I set up my company called HFH Consulting. The backstory of it is it stands for Hamm Family Holdings. And it was just meant to be like a hobby kind of BS business. It was like, you know what? Yeah, I'd love to help out. Any money I make from it, I'm just going to put into this corporation. And this is just going to be like a fund for my kids. That was the whole idea behind it, hence HFH. What happened though, is we started getting some really good results in the work that we were doing. It started taking off. I love doing this work of I love building businesses. I think that's what I'm most passionate about, not the operating of them, but I just like to get in, build, fix, move on to the next challenge. And so this now kind of has turned into like a full-time thing for me, where I made a decision last January. Well, I made the decision probably in like November that as of January, I was just going to be full-time focusing on the consulting and coaching side of the business, which led me to partner with a man named Larry Yatch, who's like an ex-Navy SEAL. I took one of his training courses 2 summers ago on management and leadership, and it was by far the best stuff that I'd ever learned. Very actionable, and I used all of this content in the coaching and consulting that I was doing with my clients. So I went back to him in the fall and was like, Larry, what I paid you to teach me before has now made me so much money. What do I have to pay to just buy the rest of it? Because this is just what I want to do, forever moving forward. And that led us into this discussion of, well, if we're on the same mission, why don't we go at this together? And I thought to myself, I'm like, this is kind of like a once in a lifetime opportunity to work with, this ex-Navy SEAL lieutenant who, has all this experience in management and leadership, developed all this amazing content. He's a genius in this aspect. And instead of me developing my own content, why don't we just go at this together? And so we've now been working together for about the last like 3.5 months. And I'm heading up, I'm the director of all of the consulting for all of his clients. And he has a team of facilitators, a bunch of people actually that we know together that just train all of his content. And so now I'm kind of going in, working with some of these companies at a high level, determining what are the things that they need, and then bringing in the appropriate teams and facilitators to teach these courses. And so that is my, I guess, mid-size introduction of like my life before fatherhood and my life after fatherhood. Now it's like I've had a lot of realizations where, and I've shared these a little bit with you, but there's 3 things that matter to me in life. One is my health, because I realize that your health is paramount in everything that you do. If you get into a really healthy state, you will be happier, you will perform better, you will be smarter, you'll have more energy. So health is like number 1 for me. Number 2 is relationships. That life is all about having deep, meaningful relationships. I don't want to have these shallow kind of surface level relationships. I don't have the time to waste on that stuff anymore. I just want to have deep, meaningful relationships with my kids, with my wife, with my friends, with the people I work with. And then third is I want to go on adventures. I want to experience. I want to have fun. Life is about living, not about working and sacrificing and suffering so that you can live in the future. And so my relationship with money and finance now is I just want to make the most amount possible in the least amount of time so I can spend all of my time living my life and doing the things that I enjoy.
Powerful. This is why. Are we ready, Twitchyverse, for all this? Are you listening? Get out your notepads, my friends, because this is what today is going to be like. Nick, you said so many powerful things just in such a short time. Because I was talking to one of my clients who's also a friend of ours, and that's sort of the thing, that we have this, and this is where I want this sort of conversation to start, is to talk a little bit about understanding success. And so let me ask you this question. If someone were to ask you, Nick, what is success to you? What would your answer be?
That's a good question. I think that I think seldom do we take the time to ask ourselves these types of powerful questions. And so the answer to this question has changed for me over time. If you were to ask me a year ago, maybe, I would say it's about achievement, right? It's about setting goals. It's about accomplishing these goals. It's about progression and development. And really, I would call that like achievement now, because it also holds true if I look back into times in my life where I remember, at one point I'm like, I want to run $1 million business. And that was the goal. And then you get to running $1 million business and you're like, I'm successful now, but how come I don't feel successful yet?
Right.
And they're like, oh, maybe it's not $1 million. Maybe I need to be at 2 million. And then you go and you do that. And you're like, you're always chasing this thing. You're chasing what you think when you get to a certain level, it's going to make you feel a certain way. And when you get there, you just want something else. And so it just becomes this like chasing something like the horizon that you'll just never get there. So that's how I would have kind of defined it in the past. And that's the flaws in how I see defining it now. The way I would define success now is optimized daily experience, sustainable over time. Am I making the most out of each day? Am I enjoying my day to the fullest? Right? Because before, when I used to work like 90, 100-hour weeks, it's like, and I was proud of that. I wore that like a badge of honor. Like, hey, I did 100 hours this week. I'm so proud of myself. But really, it's like, I was just suffering and I was getting nothing from it. Like that's the suffering I thought would give me what I would want, but it didn't. And so now it's more about, am I getting what I want the most out of each and every day? But I could obviously just go and sit on a dock and read a book all day. And that's kind of like an optimized daily experience. Now it's not very sustainable over time. So, and this is some of the stuff that Larry, my partner in the ex-Navy SEAL or retired Navy SEAL, I think is a better way of saying it. This is what, his distinction would be daily optimized experience, sustainable over time. And now that I've understood this and I kind of put it into all of my experiences in life, this tends to be the truest definition of how you can experience success.
Can you say that one more time? Can you, that the daily optimized
experience, sustainable over time.
Just what brought up on the screen, Nick, is something that our friend Josh, who also Poutine Nation, which is premised on knowing and owning the value that you bring to the table, making the most of money possible in the least amount of time possible.
Yeah.
And our friend A.B. Wong, who just did a mic drop. I got to bring it up for you, Nick, because he's right. This is the mic drop, baby. This is it. Daily optimized experience, sustainable over time. And then the mic drop. Yeah, that's powerful stuff. I say this because, you see, Nick, I think that there's a big battle in terms of understanding this and understanding success and understanding what people want. I was just talking to someone who is an old dear friend from many moons ago. And, they have so much to offer. I just feel in my heart they're not leveraging their superpowers, and more importantly, but this misconstrued understanding of what success is. And I still think that people have this belief that success is like the shit that I can buy. And that all of this success is based on, well, my house is 3,500 square feet. What's yours? And it's so not. And listen, maybe this is a better way of saying it, but or maybe a way that's going to poke at people. But those that are awakened seem to understand that it's exactly what you just said, that success is, a daily optimized experience that you can sustain over time. And I want to add something. I told AB Wong 99 I was going to do this. Nick, I want to do this. This is important because it goes along success. A lot of people, Nick, really believe that success revolves around their career. And so my dear friend, our dear friend, AB Wong, did his vision board today on career, and he put 4 parts to this Twitchyverse. Get out your notes, because this is powerful shit right here, and you need to write this down. He broke out the pizza slice of the career into 4 ingredients: the pepperoni, the mushrooms, the green peppers, and the extra cheese. And he said, number 1, Identify human problems to solve. Choose an area that you're passionate about and where you can be empathetic and connected with it and help in solving the problem or problems. Number 2, he talked about leveraging the superpowers. So he gave this great thing. I don't know if you've heard of it, Nick. It's called Clifton Strength Finder.
No.
Have you heard about this? But this is I guess a test. It's a 100-question test that you pay a very nominal fee for, or a small fee for, and you go and you do these things. But it's about getting to know your superpowers and then leveraging those superpowers to help in the problem-solving process. Then the third part of his subcategory was supercharge learning and growth. And God knows, Nick, you're a beast at learning and growth. And what does that mean? That means that if you have superpowers, but you need to seek out more information, you go and do that. And then, of course, he used Tuan's idea of JIT learning. Just-in-time learning. Sometimes you need to go and learn something, but you don't need to do it right now. You need it to do it just in time. And then finally, the fourth was mentors and networks, and this ability to find and seek out mentors, just like I have in you, and leverage your network. And all of this is exactly what you're doing in your career. It's remarkable. All of these things, Nick, you are doing. And to me, when I look at you, Nick, and I look at the situation, I want people to feel this. I want them to imagine closing their eyes and just feeling this. Success is about these things. Solving a problem, leveraging your superpower, learning and growing so that you can always be better than you were the next day, and then going to seek out people who are better than you, because if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. And then, of course, your networks, which is what you just said. You just said it 2 minutes ago. You said, I don't have time for surface level relationships. I want to have deep, meaningful relationships. Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the show. I'm done. I'm out of here. I don't need to say anymore. This is it. It's brilliant. But Nick, this is what you do. And I want to go further into that, Nick, because tell me a little bit about what you're doing with some of your clients. What do they come to you for? If a businessman comes to you, what are some examples of some of the things they come to you for?
Yeah, and I'll just add one other thing, I guess, with success or my current distinction of it, let's say, as daily optimized experience, sustainable over time. I think what's led me to this, and maybe it is incomplete, but I always look at what are all the situations that could happen that make this your current definition of success not hold up. So, for example, it's like if there's a lot of people and clients I've worked with that they're very wealthy and they have millions of dollars, but they don't feel successful, right? They're not happy. They still want more. So it's not just a wealth thing. It's not a materialistic thing. It's a lot of times people will get certain materialistic things thinking that it's going to make them feel a certain way. And then when they get it, and maybe they get a little boost of dopamine if they feel a certain way for a period of time, and then it wears off, and then it's on to the next thing, right? Always what we'd say, like keeping up with the Joneses, right? It's always the next biggest, more features, larger vehicle, more square footage in the house. And so how can you have a definition of success for yourself that is actually going to make you feel fulfilled? And so an optimized daily experience is different for everyone. I know you just shared the one that you went through, let's say with Albert on the career side, and it's very similar to maybe myself, but that could be totally different for someone else, and that's okay. And the idea is that if you want to be successful, which I think if you were to ask every single person, their answer would be like, yes, of course I want to be successful. Well, what does success even mean? You can't get it if you don't even define success. And seldom do we ask ourselves these types of questions. And so this is actually something that had come up when you and I were doing some life coaching in the clarity side of things. It's like when we were doing my vision board before, and we talked about relationships, right? We talked about my loving relationship, the relationship with my wife. What does that look like? What is over time Like, let's say not a goal, but the desired end state. Do we want to have strong communication? Do we want to be able to navigate challenges and problems that come up our way? Do we want to share in experiences? And so marriage, let's say, could be a goal. A desired end state is, well, what does that relationship look like forever moving forward? And if we don't put effort into it, and if we don't even know what it needs to be, and then we don't put the energy and effort into it, it ends up falling apart, and it doesn't end up being what we intended or desired it to be. And so that's kind of what had led me to getting more clarity in having these deep, meaningful relationships with some of the work we had done together. But the main point here is, it's like, how do we get clear on knowing exactly what it is that we want? Because if you don't know what you want or what you're working for, you're never going to get there. That's for certain. And then you're always going to be left feeling somewhat unfulfilled. Yep. So I just wanted to add that in.
That's powerful, because, you know, one of the things I said to Albert today is that with the interesting thing about superpowers, and I know that we've had this discussion, Nick, as well, about identifying those superpowers, is they never leave you. You know what happens to a lot of people is that they just don't use them. They're not leveraging, they're not using their superpowers. Maybe because of, there could be a multitude of reasons as to why. They're stuck in a job. They feel that they need the money, and the money is the driving force. Every single person, including yourself, has told me as I go along my journey as a clarity coach is, don't do it for the money. Do it because you love to do it. And if you're dedicated, if you work hard, if you use some of the standard things that we talk about when we talk about how to achieve, let's call it financial success, is you do it and you be disciplined with it. And I think that one of the things that to me makes a lot of sense in what you said is that number one is health. A lot of people talk about this shit, Nick, all the time. You know how many people say, well, number one is health? Well, here's the thing, guys, and I'm sure that you're a testament to this, Nick, because you're in great shape. You do Muay Thai with me. Let's be real. Nobody wants to be on the other end of a right hand from Nick Hamm. Just making that for the record. But health is key, man. The healthier you get, the clearer your mind is, the clearer the thought process is. And I mean, can we focus before we get to the question about your clients and what you think? Can we talk a little bit more about that component, Nick? Maybe we can talk a little bit more about health and sort of some of the revelations that you've had over the last little while.
Hey, man, we can talk about whatever you want.
Yeah, I really want to talk about the health part. I mean, listen, we have a beautiful goddess with us today in our chat, Catherine, who we all know is this beautiful goddess who really has, uses and leverages her superpower to help others. And, this is like, and of course she promotes this idea. She wrote just now, health is wealth. And I want to say, Nick, or I want to at least ask you, tell me a little bit about some of the things that you've experienced, some of the revelations that you've had lately.
Yeah. So I think most of my life, I've gone through cycles in health, right? Where, this is kind of I guess, before fatherhood again. This is a bit of a theme. I hadn't really thought about this, but I guess my life definitely changed a lot in becoming a father. Before fatherhood, it's like, hey, it's, we're coming out of winter, spring's coming, probably time to start like losing some weight, getting like the beach body ready. So I can, be in great shape to go meet ladies basically. And then it's like, oh, it's fall, time to just like bulk up on, eating whatever I want and like not really caring about it. So I think my motivation for health has definitely changed after I became a father. I remember, and I think in humans in general, we're far often more motivated by the fear of loss than we are with the prospect of gain. And so I had this thought one time as in thinking about my health of, it's like I started having kids in my like, mid 30s, I guess, or like early to mid 30s. And I want to spend as much time with them as possible. Like I want to meet their grandchildren. I want to be in not just like present, but present in good health with a sound mind, be able to go like, play throw the football with my kids outside and stuff. And so I started thinking, I'm like, look, if I don't take my health seriously, I'm going to leave 10, 15, 20 years that I could potentially have on this earth in good health with my family and with these relationships. That could all be gone, right? So I started to think of, I need to stay in shape, not so I can have a good looking body for the summer, but so I can maximize my time spent and the quality of time that I spend with these people I care about and the work I'm doing. If I can get another 10 or 15 years to really build the legacy that I want to leave on this world, I need that time. And so the fear of losing that time kind of kept health, instead of going through these cycles of ups and downs, into, okay, I'm going to be like taking this a lot more seriously. Now it's definitely got a lot more serious from there. But that was like, staying consistent with working out, with my nutrition. But in reflecting on what my life looked like at that point, health-wise, I would be super strict during the week. Like I would meal prep, I would eat exactly what I need to do, no cheating, work out all throughout the week, no alcohol, no, nothing, substances, chemicals, anything like that. And then I would get to like Friday or Saturday night and I would have like cheat meals, or I would have drinks, or, smoke a joint or something like that. So it was kind of like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, so to speak. And I track all my health stats, like weight, heart rate, all that kind of stuff. And you can see it in the data. It's like these blips, like just like over time. But then when I started working with Larry, we had this discussion around one of the things that he does in his team is that everyone needs to always bring things that they want to work on. So like feedback to the table. And one of the things I noticed is like, look, I'm very impatient. And so I'm always trying to go too fast. I'm not planning enough. I make a lot of mistakes because I'm doing that. I'm judging people in conversations before they're even finished saying what, like I'm just going way too fast. And so I asked for some feedback on that. He's like, well, I can give you some tips and tricks, but like a lot of that might just have to do with the chemistry and physiology of what's going on in your body. He's like, there's this group I've been working with of scientists and doctors. You should talk to them and, get some feedback as to what's actually happening physiologically that's keeping you so jacked up all the time. And this is something that I think a lot of people go through. And so let's say I would get up in the morning, I would have some coffee. That's going to jack me up. It's going to make me alert. I'm like super high strung, like super jacked up of like, go. Then it's like, you get to early afternoon, maybe 1, 2 o'clock, you start to crash a little bit. So you either have more coffee, more caffeine, or chocolate or sugar or something to kind of pick you back up. And then you get to the evening and you're like, oh, you know what? I'm kind of jacked up. I need to sleep soon. So I'm going to like have a drink, or I'm going to like smoke a joint or something like that to kind of like level me back down. And neurologically, I'm just going through this roller coaster ride of like artificial ups and downs and ups and downs and ups. And like just doing that for one day, really not a big deal. But you start doing this a lot more, or like caffeine for me, I've been drinking coffee for like 20 years. This is maybe not the best physiological state to be in from a health standpoint. And so I made a deal February 1st of this year. I'm like, I'm just going to go completely chemical free and substance free to see what it feels like, how it shows up differently in my life. So I guess I'd be like 61 days now, no alcohol, no tobacco, which I would only really smoke like cigars in the summer anyways, but still no tobacco, no caffeine. That was the biggest one for me. No sugar, no processed foods, no artificial sweeteners, no chocolate because it's still a bit of a stimulant. What else? No cannabis. Pretty much nothing that's like an external substance in my body.
Pretty much nothing.
Yeah, like everything I eat would have like 5 ingredients, right? It's just like handmade, fresh made. Even like I eat meat, so I decided that I was just going to go to a farm and get all my meat directly from a farm. And I'm like, let's see what this does for me. And the thought of doing this is like, there's no way I could give up all this stuff. Like, but I need my vices. I work really hard. I can appreciate or have some of these things that'll help me a little bit. So I'm like, I'll do a 60-day challenge to kind of see what it is. Within like a couple weeks, caffeine was the hardest to quit. So I didn't realize how addicted I was to caffeine. I had migraines for 2 weeks. I spent a couple nights like throwing up in the bathroom just from stopping drinking coffee, which is crazy to think. And that had a huge impact on my impatience. And so I really feel I'm in a great place right now where I'm very clear. My mind's very clear. I'm very focused. My energy is great. My relationships are getting better because I'm out of my own head and I'm showing up better for everyone else. Getting everything out of my system for 60 days, it's like, it's made me realize it's kind of like unplugging from the matrix, where I'm not living in this virtual world, but my body has got all these things that are going on substance wise, and my chemistry's out of whack, that all of a sudden I'm like got clean of this for, let's say, 30 days. I'm like, wow, this feels like a different vessel. Like I feel like a totally different person. And then guess what happens? My relationships start improving. My consulting business starts exploding, where I've like doubled revenue in the last, like, I guess like 40 days now or something like that. I'm seeing things so much clearer. I'm changing my like definitions of success and what my daily experience looks like. And it's so health for me, it's, think of it of like you have tools and then you have the operator of the tools. And health is, you are the operator, right? So everything you're doing is going to get substantially better if you start taking your health a lot more seriously. And I'm not saying this if everyone should go and do this. Like I'm not here to judge or to pass what's worked for me should work for others. I'm just saying that I'm just sharing, I guess, what has worked really well for me.
Yeah.
And from a health standpoint, it's like total game changer and everything.
But tell me, do you remember, Nick, you sent me this video about that. Did you want to talk sort of what the basic premise of that video was? It was the one about how if your
gut health or how caffeine works.
No, the gut health one. I think it was the gut health one that we talked about, how you get into a sort of a cycle. You eat bad food to feel better, and then there's this vicious cycle that happens.
Yeah, I can share I'm definitely not a doctor in any of this, so I'm just kind of sharing some of my reading, because I get kind of obsessive about stuff. So when I started kind of like going all in on this health stuff, I just started reading tons of like journals and doing research and things like that. And so this mostly comes to do with like our gut biome. And so there's a lot of, I guess, like cutting edge research that's starting to come out about this. And I think science right now is saying that they know our gut health is linked to our brain chemistry and our brain health, so to speak. They don't know exactly how yet. It's not 100% proven. I've done a bunch of reading where like, I think I've got some understanding of how they are related. So I'll speak a little bit to this, but like, I'm not an expert in this by any means. Do your own research. Never take anyone's assessments. You should never listen to what someone says and say, that's what it must be. You should always just go do your own research, form your own assessments, and make your decisions based off that. That would be my disclaimer. But basically, our gut health is very strongly linked to what's happening in our brain. And if I would try to simplify this, I think that there's two real things that our gut bacteria does. Or first of all, I guess, if you look at how many bacteria cells we have in our body, it's something like 10 trillion to 1 trillion human cells. So we are technically more bacteria than we are, human from that perspective, from like cellular volume, I guess. And so what the bacteria in our gut does is it basically will break down and process all of the food so that we can retain the nutrients and then excrete the waste. But it also then sends signaling agents to our brain, which will then release different neurotransmitters. And the reason why it's kind of an elegant feedback loop that would have existed from like ancient caveman days of, let's say there's about 150 bacteria, different types of bacteria in an ideal human biome. To simplify this, let's say there's two, okay? And this is not exactly how it works, but let's say one loves alcohol and one loves carrots. So say you drink a whole bunch of alcohol, the one that loves alcohol, this composite, like the amount of this bacteria is going to bloom, right? Because you're creating an environment where it's going to thrive. So you're going to get a lot more. And let's say the ones that like carrots, there's less, so it's going to shrink down. And so what happens is that you have all this bacteria that loves alcohol. So if you stop drinking alcohol, it's going to be sending signal agents to your brain being like, cravings wise, we need more of this because we want this to survive. And so you start getting cravings from some of this. Then let's say if you ate a whole bunch of carrots, the amount of bacteria that loves carrots is going to bloom up and go to a higher level. And then let's say we have this feedback system where in ancient caveman times, if you ate a bunch of like fermented fruits that had alcohol in it and it's toxic for your body, it's also going to send a signaling agent to your brain that's going to make you feel, let's say, tired, lethargic, and depressed. Because in that environment, if you feel that way, you're not going to survive. And so that's your body basically telling your brain, eat less of this. This is not good for us. And then let's say, and it doesn't work like this, but let's say you eat a lot of carrots, it's going to send another neurotransmitter of let's regenerate the eyes or put growth into the our optical nerves to make our eyesight better. That's not how that works, but like roughly speaking, let's say there's positive impacts and then there's negative impacts.
Right.
And so
of course.
When you start, if you look at like all of our diet from what we're eating nowadays, it's like we are getting our biomes way out of whack. And so when our biomes get way out of whack, it's starting to make us feel a certain way. Everything from our cognitive ability, how quickly we can learn and absorb new information, to are we feeling happy? Do we have lots of energy? Are we very tired? Like all of these things are very closely linked to our gut. And so when I went on this like 60-day challenge, it was, let me try to get my gut health back to as close to optimal as possible. And a lot of the stuff that we consume, even coffee is very acidic. It's not good for gut health. Alcohol is very toxic, sugar, all these types of things. So there are certain types of bacteria that are going to love that. And then there's others that are healthy, that are going to have positive impacts that aren't and are going to die from this. And so, our gut health is very closely tied to how happy we are, our learning ability. And if we start to think of it in terms of our brain is kind of like our sensor that tells us if we're healthy or not. So if it's damaged, it doesn't even know that it's damaged. It's like if you had a sensor in your car that's damaged, giving faulty readings, the sensor doesn't know that it's damaged. And so I can't remember what it's called. There's a term for this. It's like autopsychodysmorphia, I think, or something like that. It has to do with like the brain being the thing that tells us whether we're healthy or not. And so as I started doing all these things for my health and improving, it's like not only does my performance go up, happiness, energy, all these types of things, but it's like I'm starting to heal, which is making me feel so much better as well. And so initially you start thinking, hey, I'll drink coffee so I have energy and so I can stay focused. And really what it does is it's artificially giving you that. It's just not letting your body feel its natural tiredness. And so it's just kind of getting my body back into this very natural state where it's healing, it's feeling better, I'm making better choices. The healthier I am, the easier it is to do all the things that are good for me, having the energy to go do workouts, the discipline to eat better food. So anyways, I feel what's going to happen in like 50 or 75 years, we're going to have so much more understanding and knowledge as to how closely our health is tied into our diet. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the best we can do, right? So this is not about judgment. It's like, we're just trying to survive and do what we can, cope with all the things that are going on in our lives. And so eventually I think we'll have more science and knowledge around all of this, which will lead to making better choices. But coming back to what we were talking about before, I think the biggest challenge is we just don't have the awareness. We're not clear on these things. We don't know what the connection is. And so getting clarity on this will help, I think, allow people to make better choices. So this is my kind of weird rant on health stuff that I'm definitely not qualified to be speaking about, but happy to share, I guess, a bit of my experience. And I'm sure I'm incorrect in a bunch of the things I'm saying or oversimplifying or incorrect about some of this stuff. But I definitely strongly suggest going and doing a bunch of research and then allowing that to increase your awareness and clarity to make better decisions for your health as well.
Well, and I think that this is going to be a segue into a question that our friend, our friend and our dear friend, Dev Chef asked, because with this clarity, of course, you will develop more success, right? It's almost an inevitability. If you have more clarity, you have more focus, you'll get more success. But there was an interesting question that he asked, and he said, can goal setting and success seeking become toxic if we don't step back and drink in the results? If we're so uber focused that we don't see life going on around us. And then I just want to sort of read this feed, Nick, because I would like your thoughts on this, because I agree. So Catherine wrote, yes, I think so. Only focusing on the goal and pursuit of you lose the magic of the accomplishment. The practice of being present is important. But I think that Nick's way of optimizing daily experiences is exactly allowing for enjoying and seeing results. Okay? Which, again, beautifully put. I've learned that the goal itself, Dev Chef writes, I learned that the goal itself is a bonus. The experience of working toward the goal is where the magic lies.
Yeah. It's like, I always put it back into, let's think of it for a second. Like, let's say I had a goal of, I want to build $100 million company, right? If I do that and I destroy my marriage, I'm not present for my kids, my health goes to shit. It's like, am I going to feel successful upon obtaining that? Or am I going to be like, my life is kind of miserable, but yes, I accomplished this, but how come I'm not feeling happy? And so I think that something, I don't know where this comes from, and I'm definitely someone that's done this for most of my life. There's this aspect of our culture that makes us think like, suffering. It's like no pain, no gain. And I would always say this all the time, like in our Muay Thai classes, right? Where it's like, bring the pain, all this kind of stuff. But like, why must we suffer? Why does it have to be that way? Why can't we just enjoy the outcomes without suffering? And so when we start looking at like having goals, a lot of times it will be obtaining that at the suffering of something else. And that's why this whole distinction, let's say, of daily optimized experience sustainable over time is, if you're suffering every single day, it doesn't matter what you do over 10 years or 5 years. That's not worth it, right? Life is too short to suffer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Nick, I will say this to you, that every book I've read in the world of metaphysics that talks about the spiritual leaders of the planet have all said that. This systemic way of living, that you have to suffer. Listen, I'll give you a wonderful example of, even from the world of martial arts. We all know, or if you don't know, Faraz Zahabi is George St. Pierre's head coach at TriStar in Montreal. And he went on Joe Rogan's and he talked about the idea of flow. And he said, you get two people in the gym. One person goes and does 5 pull-ups every day. The one guy goes and he maxes out at 10 pull-ups, but he's so sore the next day that he can't work out the next day. So he doesn't do it. But this guy keeps coming in every day. He's not in pain. He's doing what he can. And, he says that the guy that's doing the 5 pull-ups every day over a period of time will have completed more pull-ups than somebody who has done, their max in a day and then is so sore the next day that they can't train. This is what he called in being in the flow. And what I love about what you're saying is that this is about being in your flow. That's what this is about. And that you don't have to go through pain. You don't have to go through pain to get to where you want to be. And to get, as long as you have clarity, and this is my thing, man. This is a Crew Mel special, baby. You need 2 things: balance, because we're an internal control system. So I believe that we have to balance. If you subscribe to the philosophy that we are a 3-part being of body, mind, and spirit, I challenge you to ask, what are you doing to exercise all 3 points of the triangle of body, mind, and spirit? Because then, if this internal control system is balanced, whatever is going to manifest on the outside will be balanced.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's what makes this work that you do so powerful. Like, I know I can speak from our experience of when we work together. It's like doing the vision board. It's not, okay, so what are the outcomes that you want for your career? It's, what is the whole life picture, right? Like you said, like with Albert, like the pizza, it's like, what are all the components all together? Because it's about having that balance of and being clear in all those different areas. And I remember when we did our vision board, it was funny how some of it would work, right? It's like, I look at the loving relationship with Lena. I almost took that for granted. I'm like, we're married, I'm super busy. We have kids. It's like, no. If I don't put energy and effort into that area of my life, I'm not going to have the marriage that we both are going to want, and we're both going to be happy. And I didn't realize at the moment, but if we kept going on the trajectory that we were going, it's not like our marriage was in threat, but it's like, we'll eventually just become friends and not lovers, and partners in co-parenting and running a household, and lose that like intimate connection between us. And I remember after we had that discussion of, what does that aspect of my life, what do I envision for that in the future? And you made me put together a bunch of pictures, and I had like pictures of like, an old couple on a beach still holding hands, and like and sharing experiences, and it doesn't have to be fancy or expensive, and all that kind of stuff. And then what did that lead me to do? Before we even got to you giving me homework on it, I did my like Alina appreciation weekend, where it was some random weekend. I don't remember what month this was in, but it was just like me and our 2 boys were like, all right, this weekend we're going to make it all about Alina. And we just pampered her and treated her like the queen that she is in our lives, just because I realized that we hadn't been doing all the things that she deserves. And it's not that we took it all for granted. We just hadn't put effort into it, because we're so focused and preoccupied with other areas of my life, or I was, at least not the kids. And so just getting clarity on that then allowed my actions to flow in alignment of clarity without even being pushed or challenged to do so. that's why I think the key to all of this, like everything, is just getting clear on, what does success mean for you? What does health mean for you? Why is health important? What are the important aspects of your life? Like, that is the first step in getting everything that you want, is knowing what it is that you want.
I think that what I'd like to do, Nick, is I really loved specifically your part. Albert Wong today gave me this brilliant thing on a career. Tell me what the pieces, what the ingredients on that piece were. Could you just sort of go over that? Because if you remember, you had divided into, I think, 3 subcategories. So loving relationship had 3 subcategories. What were they? Do you remember?
Yeah. So I had quality time.
Okay.
Right. I had communication, and then it was overcoming challenges and adversity. So then we started to look at, okay, in reflecting that in my calendar, if I want to have quality time, that's when we started having date nights again. And we started going into, we would always compromise on our date nights. So then that switches to, let's not do let's figure out a date night. It's like, this week is my date night. I plan it. We do what I want. Next week is yours. And so we started doing this alternating of sharing in new experiences, because it wasn't a movie that we wanted to watch together. It wasn't dinner that we agreed and compromised on together. It was, nope, this is my turn. Next week is your turn. And so then we started planning, how can we get away maybe once a quarter, just like her and I, and get like a babysitter for the kids. Then when we looked at like communication was like another subcategory of that. So in communication, like, what are we doing to make sure that we are communicating effectively? And so we decided that we're going to have family dinners together. So, regardless of our schedules, I'm always going to come home. We put our phones away and we just have family dinner together, and we're going to communicate. And then in overcoming adversity and challenges, one of the things that we decided was that we needed to almost have like a Sunday, almost like family board meeting, where just her and I at the dining room table and get on the same page for what's the schedule look like for the week? What's our parenting strategy? It took us a little while, but I'm happy to say we've added like finance into it. So like we talk about like our family finance, because we used to just be very independent in that before. And so when you start to get clear on what is it that you want and what are the subcategories, then you can start to reflect that into, am I taking the actions that are in alignment with that? And if I'm not, how can I start creating that? And it's still a journey. It's a work in progress, but it's like our relationship is improving, right? It's like we are getting better knowing what it is that we want and working down the path towards that.
Twitchyverse, is everybody listening? And for my friend AB Wong, I know that you're going to be working on your loving relationship part. These are some of the toppings of the pizza that I think are really, really powerful. And I think you did say sharing experiences, right, Nick?
Yeah, quality time sharing experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was important. Yeah, I mean, this is so what I love talking about, Nick. This is it, man. Because to me, it's the reason why, Nick, if I can say, I wanted to be a clarity coach, and why every client that I have starts off in the first 8 weeks doing a vision board. Because what it promotes is this idea of getting clear on what you want on the big areas of your life. And that has transcended to your health and wellness transcends into all of the other boards, that they're all interconnected in some way, shape, or form. Because when we did the friends or the social part, we talked about how the loving relationship, like some of the components or the subcategories of the loving relations, actually sort of transcend into just having any kind of relationship, whether they're friends or longtime friends and what have you. So really powerful stuff. Certainly I want to give this time also, Nick, to the people in the Twitchyverse to sort of ask any questions. But what I do want to say, Nick, is I want to actually ask you quickly a little bit about, how was that experience for you? What was it like putting that vision board together, and sort of what did it do for you in getting some of that clarity?
Yeah, well, I think I think my initial like feeling going into it, in all honesty, is it's like I would always look at this stuff as kind of like stupid. Be like, you know what? Let's just talk about it. Like, do I have to actually make a vision? But you're like, no, like you have to do it here. Do it on Pinterest, like that. And I'm like, all right, I'll humor you. But it's like I wasn't really.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I trust you, so I'm like, okay, I'll do it. But I didn't really think it would. I'm like, you know, I could just talk about it, let's say. But really doing the process of like having to go through and like find the images that kind of are in alignment and ask myself these questions, that actually brought me a lot of clarity, because I thought I was clear on things and I wasn't really that clear on things until you put me through that process. Then it's like, as soon as I became clear on those things, my actions started to align. Like I'm in our sessions, I'd almost be like jumping ahead of like working on changing my actions in the things that we hadn't talked about yet, just because as soon as I became clear, at least at that caffeinated version of me was like, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to go now.
Right. The caffeinated version.
Yeah. Maybe now I'd have the patience to like just go at the pace that you're suggesting. But yeah, I think that it's like, if we come back to like, if success for me is daily optimized experience, that allowed me to be clear on what is an optimized daily experience in all the aspects of my life that are most important.
Yeah. I think that, you know, one of the things that I said to someone today, Nick, is about that. And I think that, you know, when you talk about life, my own mission is to really help people understand that they're worth it, that they need this clarity in life, because it's worth getting, because you're worth it. Like, you are so worth it. If you believe in some kind of God, and you believe that he or she has given you some superpower, the journey is to remember that superpower so that you can leverage it and you can use your superpower to help. And that's why I'm going to go back to what Albert said today in his career chart, but about identifying a human problem to solve. Because if you're passionate about it and you can leverage your superpower, then you are doing and remembering who you truly are, stepping into your power and really using and leveraging your superpower to help others. And that's what this is about. Because one of the things that even is in what's really powerful, Nick, about you is that that's what drives you. What drives you is this ability to help people. And it's the perfect segue into going back to a question that, you know, what are you doing now, Nick, when it comes to like your clients? Why do people come to you? Why would a businessman who's making multi-millions of dollars need to come to a Nick Hamm?
Yeah, I think, so here's, if I were to like set this up a little bit, I guess I'm gonna use another powerful distinction, like my distinction of success. Say, let's deconstruct ambition. What is ambition? Ambition is the desire to change our current situation for a different situation in the future. So ambition is our desire to change our current situation for a different situation in the future. And so, you know, we always talk about people having ambition. That's really what it is they want to change something for the future. Now, it doesn't have to be positive, right? So ambition is not always a good thing. If someone wants to cause harm to others or, you know, take their own life, that's changing their current situation for a different one that's maybe not positive. So ambition is not always positive. So if you were to deconstruct ambition, though, there's really three parts to it. There's the first one, if you haven't changed your current situation, you have to be clear on where you currently stand. Okay. So that's where clarity comes back in. Not where do you think you stand, but where are you actually? Be honest with yourself. Where do you currently stand? Then you have to be clear on your desired end state, where it is that you want to go in the future. Clarity of like, what is it that we're working towards? And that creates a gap, right? So then there's a gap in the middle. And so that gap is what I would call, you have power. So power is your ability to influence change. Okay. So if you're very strong, you have a lot of power at influencing change, you can then close the gap of, you know, your current situation to your future situation of where you would like to be. Now, when do we fail? We fail when our power is less than our ambition. Every time we failed, any of us, like if we were to ask anyone, anytime they've ever failed, it's because their ambition exceeded their ability to influence change. Okay. if your power is greater than your ambition, which is not a possibility for me as an entrepreneur, but if I worked in a job, if I'm capable of influencing more change, I'm capable of more, but the ambition is not allowing me to do more, I become unfulfilled. Now, what happens when power matches ambition? It's a beautiful thing. You're changing, you're growing, you're getting more, but you're at peace because it's not above your limits or it's not below. It's right in that kind of threshold. So if I'm working with a business owner or anyone in life, really, and it kind of, it's mostly business owners and entrepreneurs that I'm working with, but really it's like if they're failing at something, it's because their ambition exceeds their power. So they have two choices. Either one, you can lower your ambition to match your power, or two, you can raise your power to match your ambition. But that's the only thing you can do to not fail and to get back into like a harmonious state, be at peace where you're growing and accomplishing things, but not, not failing and not going crazy. And so regardless of what they're doing, if their ambition, so they could be growing $1 million a year, but if they might feel like a failure because their ambition is they want to be growing at 5 million a year. So then how can you increase your power? How can you increase your ability to influence change? Well, through mentorship, through learning, through developing, through becoming stronger. And so that's the type of stuff that I would typically do, with the businesses that I'm working in. So that way, people don't have to increase their power, but then they just have to either lower their ambition so they stop failing, because it's not fun to fail, or they can find ways to increase their power, which is hiring outside mentorship. It doesn't have to be me; it could be anyone, right? Now, whenever I'm working with companies, I've kind of broken it down into 3 categories. One, there's the person, right? So the individual, and a lot of times health, physiology. After experiencing this all myself, this is something that cannot be ignored. So that's something that needs to be considered. 2 is behaviors, both conscious and subconscious. So the things that we are doing. How can we change those? How can we be more effective? And then 3 is business strategy and structure. Okay. So as an entrepreneur, I have, a bunch of experience in building businesses. So the strategy and structure, I'm not like expert in just that. Obviously, I have experience, so I can share in that based on my experience. The behavior stuff is where Larry's content really is very powerful and has made a huge difference, because he's developed all these behavior change tools that allow you to take something like responsibility and deconstruct it into its like 4 components that allow people to effectively delegate and hold responsibility, or like everything, how to give feedback effectively, how to communicate effectively. All these things are behavior change aspects that he's deconstructed and build a whole bunch of great content. So depending on the needs of the business or the individual, I'll kind of go in different areas. Like I have one client who's very successful, runs a very large business, and we're focusing on how he can disconnect more from his business, feel more fulfilled with the results that he has, so he can be more present with his family, right? And that's the work we do. I have someone else who's trying to grow their business, and we're focusing a lot on systems and structure and business strategy. I have other people and a lot of large companies I'm working with where we're systematically going through and changing the behaviors of the people in the organization to allow the organization to perform at a higher level. Behavior change is usually the biggest way to change the performance of an organization, because we are not computers. If we were computers and we networked us all together, our resources and capability would stack very quickly, right? So 1 plus 1 plus, like 1 plus, whatever equals 100. If you have 100 people, you do 1 plus 1 plus 1, blah, 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 it equals like 37, because we are emotional. We are somewhat unpredictable. Our behaviors, get in the way of us coordinating action towards higher performance. So a lot of times you can go into an organization and you can just get the team, even something as simple as, all being unified in what the desired end state is, or how to better pass responsibility. You can start to increase the performance of an organization without adding more people to the table. And we also talk about things like success as a daily optimized experience, sustainable over time. Is that what the employees are feeling right now? Are they experiencing success, or are they overworked, burning out, stressed out? Is that healthy for the organization? Is that healthy for the individual? So I think if I were to say, what are the unique things that I do in my consulting? There's a couple of them. One is that the thing that I hate the most about consultants or digital marketing or any of like other professional people I've worked with in this space as a client, where I've been a client of them before, is that it's so subjective, where it's like you come to a 1-month meeting and they're like, hey, we're crushing it. And you're like, I don't think we're crushing it. And I'm like, how are we seeing this differently? So the first step we do is we decide what are the things that we're going to work on and how can we measure the progress. So we set KPIs so that you and I, or myself and the clients, we're going to see this from the same perspective. Is it working? Are you getting a good return? None of this like subjective crap. That's one thing that I think is kind of unique. Second is that we don't focus just on professional and we don't just focus on personal. It's like if you're having a horrible experience at work, you're going to bring that home and it's going to affect your personal life. If you have trouble on your personal life, it's going to come to work and it's going to affect your professional life. So we can't isolate these things. Humans are, like what you're doing, there's all these dimensions of their life. They all have to be in harmony. So it's ignorant to think that, hey, this is work, we're just going to focus on business performance. We need to talk, if we're talking about daily optimized experience, that's going to be some personal, that's going to be some professional. And we need to, and if a client's not willing to allow us to have these discussions in general, if they're like, no, we just want to talk about sales performance, then that's okay. I'm just not going to work with you because that's not what I believe in doing. So we need to, optimize the entire experience for everyone within the business. And then the third part, I think that's kind of unique is that in all this behavior change stuff, Larry has this beautiful content that's all broken down into very specific actionable steps. So it's not about theory. So I just, right before this, I just got off teaching a workshop where we went through a bunch of concepts for less than 20% of the time. And then we practice it and we implement it. And then we send them out with action steps so they can actually see meaningful change in these things that we're working on. And all of Larry's content is very specific, broken down into these little small actionable steps or components so that you can be very specific on what needs to change. And that's really the only way that you can ensure that the work that we're doing actually results in change, which is going to increase the KPIs, allowing me to fulfill those commitments with clients. And the other thing is I don't like doing big contracts. It's not like we're going to do like a 6-month contract where it's like you lock someone in, or a 1-year contract. It's like, look, if this is not working for you, then I don't want to do this either. This is not about financial obligations. So my guarantee is it's like, look, if you want to stop at any time, we stop at any time, no penalty. You're not tied into this. We either win together or we lose together. And I'm going to make sure that we don't lose together. So that's kind of, I think, what's a bit different and unique in some of the coaching and consulting that I've been doing, and really what's allowed us to create meaningful, lasting impact and grow, I guess, my consulting practice very rapidly.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I wanted to know, Nick, if it would be okay with you just to kind of give you some perspective for my friends in the Twitchiverse to get some perspective about this. Yesterday, we were on a call, and I said, I was frustrated. I mean, it was okay, but I was a bit frustrated. I need to do some asking of help. Mm-hmm. And can you go just to kind of give you can you give our friends here in the Twitchiverse just a little bit of these processes that you talk about? Because you know what the most amazing part is there's a process for how to ask somebody for help. Mm. So in my case, I want to go to some of my clients and friends and ask them to give a recommendation. Because I'm trying to bring my online presence. But did you want to just for the sake of our friends in the Twitchiverse, would you mind sharing, Nick, the 4 things that you told me yesterday, which were super powerful? I shared them with both my clients today, and it was awesome.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm going to try to summarize this into like 5 minutes of what's normally like a 3 2-hour sessions of a workshop we would teach on this concept. But I want to make sure everyone leaves with value from this. So I'm happy to share this as well. So I think the first thing you have to understand, what is responsibility? Responsibility is about having an obligation to do something. Okay. So like, let's say myself as an entrepreneur, as the CEO, I have an obligation of everything that happens in the business. It's all my responsibility of what happens. Okay. We have obligations to a lot of things, right? Like our personal lives, our professional lives, like tons and tons and tons of obligations. Now, there's a difference of having a responsibility and holding a responsibility. So having a responsibility is you have an obligation. Holding a responsibility is about taking the action to fulfill that obligation, right? The reason why we have teams, right? Why are we not like solo business owners? Is we have more obligations or have more responsibility, because that's interchangeable, than we have the capacity to hold. Okay, so we have more responsibility than we have the capacity to hold, which is why we need to have a team so that we can pass or delegate that responsibility so someone else can take the action to be able to deliver on the obligation that someone else has. So let's say you have the obligation, like we talked about yesterday, of getting a bunch of positive, or just accurate, not even positive, authentic, accurate online reviews based on what it's like for people that have experience in working with you. That is your obligation. You can't hold that because you can't write it about yourself. So you need to delegate that or pass that to someone else, right? So the first thing I said to you is that, because when we were talking about it, is like, you didn't really ask me. First of all, you were kind of like, it would be nice if this happened, and I'm just like, I don't know if you're asking me. If you're asking me, then ask me, but I'm not going to do it if you don't ask me. So then you asked me, and then I gave you kind of the formula. So anytime you're going to pass a responsibility to someone else, every single time someone doesn't fulfill a responsibility, they don't do something that they were supposed to do. This happens in workplace all the time. It gets delivered late. It's not done properly. The quality's not there. They make excuses. It's always a breakdown of one of these four things. So anytime you're going to pass a responsibility to someone else, there's four parts. One is that you have to cover its awareness, right? Why is this important? And what's the consequence of not doing it? So not go do this, explain why this is important and what's the consequence of what's going to happen if it doesn't get done. Second then is standard of performance. How are we going to, black or white, not gray, check this off of whether this was completed or not? So standard of performance could be what exactly needs to be done. So you have to get 5 online reviews by this date. If it's a big project, it might be what are the reporting metrics they're going to go in the process of delivering this. So a clear standard of performance. Third has to be power to act. Does the person have the resources, knowledge, capability to be able to do this? And why are you giving this task to them, right? So why are you empowering them to do it? And is there anything they're missing to be able to deliver it? And last is you need their commitment. So you need to make sure that they are accepting that. Just because you give it to them doesn't mean they accept it, right? And once they accept it, then you know that they're going to be the one that's going to hold it. And so in this example, like as I was saying to you, is that, first of all, you have to ask. So you need to ask, hey, Nick, is now a good time? I have something you could maybe help me with. Yeah, sure, Mel, what's going on? So I was wondering if you could complete some online reviews for me, or complete an online review, giving people an authentic idea of what it was like working with me in life coaching. Now we go into awareness. Why is this important? This is really important for me because as a new coach in the field, I'm trying to build an accurate online representation of what it would be like to work with me. And then you could add this, and maybe it's not necessary for this example, but I'll use it anyways. What's the consequence of not holding it? What I'm worried about is that if I meet someone new that could be a potential client, and they go and they start reading a bunch of online reviews and they don't find anything, I might really be able to help this person in clarity coaching. And they might not go ahead with me and do work with me just because I don't have an online presence. So that's the consequence of what might happen if there isn't these online things. What's the standard of performance? So what exactly does he need me to do? Would it be possible? So then, if you can go on LinkedIn and write me a recommendation. So clearly here, a recommendation, not a endorsement, because that could confuse me. A recommendation, by next week, that would really help me out. And if you don't mind, you could even copy and paste that recommendation on LinkedIn and go on Facebook and just leave that review on Facebook for me as well. Power to act. Why is he choosing me? Right? So Nick, you know what? I really enjoyed all the work that we were doing together. I feel that you had a lot of impact from the clarity coaching that we had done. And I think people could really benefit from you sharing that experience, because I think there's a lot of other people that struggle with some of the same things that you were struggling with before. Is there anything you would need from me to be able to do this? So is there any resources he's missing from me? Maybe I'm like, hey, I have no idea how to use LinkedIn, or I'm really not good with Facebook. Could you maybe help me out that? Or what's a recommendation? Then he could fill in whatever that is. And then the last thing is commitment. Am I actually going to accept that? So then he might say to me, Nick, this really would mean a lot to me. Is this something you can do for me? Can you hold this responsibility for me? Would be another way to ask. And I say, yes, Mel, I'll do that for you. The likelihood of me doing that versus, hey, Nick, you know what? It'd be nice if you have some time maybe to write me an online review. That's like if I have time, I'll do it. Or do you need me to do it? Right? What exactly do you need me to do? When does it need to be done by? And so this is a bit of a different situation in the passing of responsibility, because you're asking me for a favor. But if we were to apply this to any type of situation at work, we're always lacking, and we do this in one of our workshops, is we call it deconstructing irresponsibility. When is the last time that someone did not deliver on a project or task that was delegated to them? And I guarantee if you go and you dissect it, one of these 4 things was missing. And when teams start to learn how to effectively pass and delegate to each other, wow, that's when you start to get 1 + 1 + 1 equals 95 instead of like 37.
Do you guys know why he's my business coach now? Are we getting it? Are we getting it? You are the people you keep. This guy I keep, man. I got a question from one of our listeners, from one of our fans in the audience today, Nick. You may know him, the Hamza. You may know this guy. He says, would aligning your ambition to your power not be the same as staying in your comfort zone versus getting out of it, which would result in discomfort? Or is there a difference? I'm going to put that up on the screen for everybody to see. Let a shout out to our boy Hamza.
Yeah, so I think that it's it depends. I guess it's like your ambition, it's yours to decide, right? You don't have to have not everyone has great ambition. So maybe they want to just improve a little bit. That's okay. I think what happens is when you have and I'm guilty of this, when I'm a very high ambitious person, I used to hire every single person in my company only looking for high ambition people. And guess what? That's a problem, because if you only have high ambition people, you don't have the lower ambition people, which there's nothing wrong with that. There's no right or wrong in this, right. Are the ones that create a foundation and a structure to allow the high ambition people to grow and expand the company. So it's not about, I think what happens is if we start looking at like staying in the comfort zone, it starts becoming like, if their ambition is not high, is that a bad thing? There's no judgment on ambition. You just have to make sure that your power is in alignment with your ambition.
Awesome.
Otherwise you fail or you'll feel unfulfilled.
Excellent. I hope my friend Hamza that helps with your question. Our friend Josh asked, so you feel that commitment can be used interchangeably with responsibility and obligation?
So I would say that an obligation or responsibility is something that is like thrust on us. Commitment is the acceptance of that obligation. So let's say, I'll give you an example. Like I'm trying to think of something here. It'd be like, I have an obligation. Some obligations are thrust upon us and some we choose and accept. So for example, I have an obligation of keeping my kids safe or feeding them, let's say, or making sure that my car mechanically runs properly so I can get from point A to point B. That's not really a choice, right? I kind of have to have that. Well, I mean, I guess I could choose just to not have a functional car. But it's like something like kids, that's an obligation that is thrust upon me. It's something that's inherent in my role. But then there's also responsibilities in the sense that at work, I could choose to not accept something. So sometimes people always say yes to everything, right? It's like, okay, like this happens to us all the time. Hey, I'm coming back on a trip. Can you pick me up at the airport on like Friday at 5 o'clock on this date? Yeah, sure, no problem. And then it's like the day before someone texts you like, oh, you know what, dude, sorry, man. This came up. I'm not going to be able to pick you up. Right. So I thought they accepted that responsibility when really they just said yes without fully committing to it. Right. And then when it came time, then they just back out on it. So if I don't know, Josh, if this helps answer your question, but it's kind of like some obligations we have not by choice and others we get to choose whether we accept it or not. The commitment is the acceptance of it. So, me having to make sure my kids are safe and fed is like, I kind of have to accept that. Otherwise I would be a horrible father and I shouldn't be responsible for my children. But it's like something like, do I take something on? If Mel's like, hey, can you pick me up at the airport? I don't have to commit to that. So I'm not actually taking that from him. And if you look in a work environment, sometimes what can happen all the time on like Slack or project management, it's almost like we send the email. So we're like, it's done. This person's got it taken care of. It's like, no, it's my responsibility. Right. I have it no matter what. But until they accept it from a commitment standpoint, it's my responsibility to make sure that they've accepted it or find another way to get it done.
Yep. Wow. That's what I'm talking about right there. Nick, is there something that sort of you want to share in terms of sort of some of the things you're working on? I mean, it's outside of your business maybe, or in your business that you want to share. There was a question that I actually forgot to ask you yesterday. And it was a question from our dear friend, Tom, who asked whether or not there's a channel that he can follow for you, or, maybe one of our friends in the audience can pull up, something about Nick Hamm, maybe a YouTube channel, or where can people find you, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have, I guess, like a good capturing situation to stay in contact with people at this point. But Instagram is probably the best. I put a bit of content out there, a bit on LinkedIn. I did start doing a YouTube channel back in the fall. And then once I became clear on what that purpose was and the outcome was that I was working towards, I stopped and I put everything on hold just because there wasn't alignment with where I was going. I'm going to come back into the YouTube game mostly I'm going to go back into like, I'd say like how-to or educational videos. Like for example, explaining responsibility or, distinction of success, more smaller, tangible, usable pieces. We were doing a vlog before, and a vlog I think could fit into an overall strategy at some point. It just wasn't, it was like kind of I was leading with like phase 3 versus the only people that would be like watching and following that are my friends and people who care about who I am. It's not like a good exposure technique or anything like that. But I'm going to start getting a bit back into YouTube. I'd say Instagram is probably best for now, or LinkedIn. And then I think on my website, I'm having one of my guys redo my website and make it a bit better. We're going to get a mailing list going where I'm going to start sending out newsletters. I had a blog that I've been writing articles for, but I haven't really published it yet. So I just wanted to, as I become more clear on what it is exactly I'm doing and how I can help people, I'm going to find more optimal channels of sharing all this stuff and getting information out and being able to engage with a community.
Awesome. And is there something sort of interesting that you're working on, like I said, on a personal front or a business front that you sort of would like to share? And what's happening, from that regard?
I mean, nothing really. I guess it's like I've just been getting more focused on my consulting work. I'm just focused on optimizing my daily experience, I guess. So, I guess there's not really anything new and exciting there, but it's just constant improvements and change over time. Like you were talking a little bit before about like incremental improvements. Like my philosophy is if you can just get 1% better each day, over the course of a year, that's like 3.65 times better for the year. So I think I'm going to start getting a little bit more community involvement going. The consulting stuff, I'm only 3 months seriously into it. And so it's starting to kind of build a lot of momentum. I'm seeing, by working with a lot more people and companies, I'm starting to get a better idea of where I can be of most value and assistance. And so I think another 3 to 6 months that'll start refining a little bit better and I'll start be able to contribute more. I'm fascinated with this health stuff. So if anyone actually has articles, information, insights into optimizing health, this is like an obsession of mine. And I feel it'll continue to be. Today is the end of my 60-day challenge, or I guess last night was. Nothing will change though. So I'm not going into like a massive, party with like booze and cigars and like unhealthy food tonight. I really am loving and enjoying, the new experience of what it's like in this new state. So I just want to keep optimizing and improving this and keep spending lots of time with my little boys. That's what I had a couple Saturdays ago. I had this realization where I was just hanging out and playing with them in the afternoon. And I'm like, man, they are growing so fast that it's like, I don't want to miss any of these moments. So I don't want all these distractions. I don't want to work, 50, 60 hours a week. The goal is eventually I just want to get to 20. If I could do 20 hours of consulting a week, and once it's completely full, I'll just keep raising my rates. And so I can just make more money by creating more impact for less time. That's really going to allow me to live what I would consider a daily optimized experience. So it's just a journey towards that.
And the gates of heaven open up. Jennifer just wrote goals. There should have been #goals. Yeah, I mean, Nick, it's really remarkable. But there is something that I wanted to bring up as well before the show is over today, Nick. Is I wanted to talk about, if I could, that there was some revelation that you had, and it was about this revelation about not having to teach anything, but just leading by example. I wanted to, if you could, and if you feel so inclined to, talk a little bit about that, because for me, Nick, that was the revelation that you had, I think, in a meditation that really, really touched my heart, because that's what I want to do. Is I've always said, let's lead by example. And if you lead by example, people who want to grow, people who want to learn will follow.
Yeah, I mean, I've always, in all the work I've been doing, I've always been something that fills my cup is helping others, right? Seeing others succeed, helping them overcome their challenges. In all my entrepreneurial coaching with Scholars at Your Service and teaching university students, those were the things that were like the most enjoyable. And a lot of times people aren't as appreciative in the moment as they are later when they reflect back, where you get that call from someone that you worked with 5, 6, 7 years ago, and they're like, man, I just want to say thank you. Like all of these things I've done or all of this experience I've had, I attribute this all back to being a part of your program from 7 years ago. And thank you so much. And those would be like the moments that would make me the most happy. And you get almost addicted to like seeing these other people succeed and do really well. Almost so much so that it's like your self-worth and how you feel about yourself is coming from helping others. So you're so eager to create change and help others for the positive, more almost to a point where you want it more for them than they want it for themselves. And so this is something I've struggled with my whole life, where I learned something new, I experienced something new. I'm like, I just want to go share it with everyone. And I want them to have the same experience and benefits as I did. And so the problem with that is that it's like, if it's not, I can't teach people stuff that they don't want to learn. And if I'm the one that wants it more than them, then they're not going to absorb anything. And so I had this like realization where the only way that I can do these types of things, or not do these things, the way I can have the greatest impact is not to thrust any of my views, my decisions, my judgments. That's why even as we talk about today, I'm so like hesitant of like, I just want to be very clear that I'm sharing this not to say this is what I'm doing and you should do it too, but I'm happy to share my experience. But like, you really need to figure out what is the right thing to do for yourself and follow your heart and that kind of stuff, right. Not do what other people want and then have the expectations to get the same thing that happened with them. And so I just got to a point where I'm like, look, if I want to create meaningful, impactful change in others, I just have to be the example of that myself. I need to make the best choices for my life. I need to do all these things for myself and experience these things for myself. And if people want to ask about it, if they want to learn about it, I'm happy to share, but not run out and try to broadcast it to everyone else and try to recreate it for everyone else.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. And I believe in that. I believe in that. I think that there are things that I believe in that I think that, maybe it was something that I believed a long time ago that, sort of the 9 to 5 is the mundane and it's not for me, but I know that it's not for me. It's just not, that's what's good for me, not being in the 9 to 5 grind. But maybe for somebody it's good for them and that's what they love. And this is just a very small example, but I love that. And I love even what Dev Chef wrote, today, show me, don't tell me, walk the talk. These are all powerful things. I mean, Nick, I have to say, it's amazing, but you believe that almost 90 minutes went by already?
It doesn't surprise me.
It's just remarkable that when you're in the flow, how time flies, because you're just so in the present, But final thoughts, Nick. Tell us a little bit about about what what it is that. See, there is something. I know that the way that our views, or if we learn something that we shouldn't, or we don't have to sort of shove it down people's throat. But let's talk about, for example, a little bit about health, let's say. I think health is one of those things that on a spectrum, even though people may choose, like, for example, there's a million diets out there. So somebody might say, well, the keto diet is good for me, or this other diet. But I think that some of the concepts that you talked about today really do and have an effect on everybody's life. That the idea, as Catherine said today, health is wealth. So if you have a healthy body and if you're treating your body like the temple, this will have effects in other areas of your life. And so I don't know what the ask is here, but just some final thoughts.
Yeah, sure. I can wrap up my final thoughts and maybe we can tie this all back together. Which would be nice if we can loop it back around and put a nice little bow on it. But I think when we talk about like sharing our experiences with others and wanting what's best, for ourselves and thrusting that into others. It's all about timing, right? I think if like a lot of these things that I'm experiencing now landed straight in my lap 10 years ago, it just would have flew right through me. Nothing would have happened with any of it. Like the knowledge, the mentors, the experiences, everything in life is about timing. And I think where this all comes back around is that what's so beautiful about us as a species, as humans, we're all unique, right? Every single one of us is unique. What's best for our health, certain diets, what's an optimized daily experience for myself is different than you. And that's what makes it's beautiful, right? In society and in culture, we a lot of times, fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others. And so the real key to having what is best for you is getting clarity. And I think if we were to tie this all back into clarity, it's like when you get clear on what these things mean to you, what's important to you, what's success, what's going to make you happy, what's best for your body, and not do what everyone else thinks, not jump into fads or this is what worked for this person, so this will work for me. Getting clarity about these things is really the first step in then taking the steps and actions towards, achieving that full, well-rounded, happy, successful lifestyle. And so what I would say to everyone is just don't take what anyone else says is what you should do for yourself. Don't let anyone's knowledge or here's what I heard on the news or this is what I read in this one book. None of that is fact. Do your own research, trial and error, see what works best for you because we're all unique. Appreciate and love our uniqueness and just get clear on asking the right questions and figuring out what are the things that you want. And don't worry if you're not there. I'm not where I want to be in my life. It's just one little step at a time. And that progression will make you feel really good. And you'll see an uptick in kind of what your experience is of life. And you'll experience, that daily optimized experience because you'll be working towards, your desired end state of where you would like to be. So it really just comes back to clarity. And we didn't plan this, but I see this pattern in all of our discussion today, which is a great way to loop it all back around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hope we can hear. I think we're frozen. I hope we're going to come back.
Oh, maybe it's just me now. Is the chat still with me? Okay. It's funny. And then I see on here, help us upgrade the show and donate towards a new laptop. Couldn't be better timing on that.
Bit of a technical challenge. Okay, good. So we're back. Anyway, thank you, Nick. I appreciate all of that, and I'm happy that you tied it all nicely together. And I love the fact that you mentioned clarity because, as you know, that's been the big thing for me is for people having clarity. And that's why in becoming a life coach, I received some clarity and I said, this is what I want to be as a clarity coach. And in helping people by doing exactly what you said, asking the right questions, self-evaluation. And I got to give a shout out to my boy, Frenchie, one Frenchie, who's my mentor and part of the faculty of Glasser Canada and Choice Theory, because we talk about all this stuff. So, Nick, what can I say, my brother? Thank you for an awesome experience today. I'm just going to bring you backstage for a moment as I do my final thoughts. And the
last thing I'll say before you drop me back out is I just want to thank you for your friendship, for your guidance. I'm very happy with where I'm at in my life right now. And I know our sessions together and helping me get clear on this was a big part of it. So thank you for everything. And I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Okay, so I'm just going to send you backstage, but we are doing Muay Thai later on, aren't we, champ?
I'm in.
I'm in, baby. Sorry, friends, for the technical difficulty, but we're back. And I always like to give my final thoughts because getting 90 minutes of time of someone is a lot. And I'm just super grateful. I'm super grateful. I mean, I don't know whether or not you guys take notes, but I know that the people in the chat, Poutine Nation, our dear friend Rosie Tozy, I really hope you feel better, honey. I know that you're sick and you're still here, so big love to you. I want to thank everyone. Catherine, thank you so much for being here. I know that you started a Twitch channel. Maybe you can put that in the chat. I want to thank my boy, which of course, I have to say will be on the show May 21st. My boy, all the way from Jamaica, sending some Jamaica love. Robert Hislop, thank you so much for being with us today. Frenchie, I love you. You're my boy. Sandra Mio, 416 Raf, Dev Chef, Poutine Nation, Jennifer, all of you that are here today. Thank you so much for being here. Next week, guys, I have yet another great show. I just want to check in the good old calendar, but I'm positive that we have one of our very own as well, Irene Pace, also known as the Donutician. Yeah, next week's going to be a big one on health. And so please make sure that you put into your calendars 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Coffee and Biscotti Show. We have these great people that are coming on, sharing some wisdom, sharing some love with all of you. You guys are awesome. I think if I can, Poutine Nation, I think today I will make the call and we will raid to a young lady whose birthday is today. So please, I hope I didn't freeze again. My heart's broken. Am I back again? Man, I can't believe it. Technical difficulties. I don't know. Nobody's home. So I'm the only one on the internet. But anyway, let's do that raid from Clarity Coach Mel. You got it, Jennifer. I really appreciate it. Anyway, my friends, much love to you all. Join me next week, 2 p.m. Peace out.